Hello and welcome to Fin24's Debt section. Today we are chatting to Magauta Mphahlele, our debt expert and CEO of the National Debt Mediation Association. Welcome, Magauta.
Thank you.
Magauta, let's get to the crux of it. We are so often bombarded and intimidated by the financial jargon that goes around. What would you say, being in the debt industry for so many years, what should people avoid doing at all costs so as to not fall into the debt trap?
I think the biggest mistake that people do is at the point where they decide that they need credit. What they don't do is to do their own needs assessment in terms of what they want the credit for, what they are going to use it for, and whether they can afford it. Not only looking at the installment, but looking at long term to say if anything were to happen, if interest rates were to go up, if something was to happen to me in terms of my job, what would I still be able to afford this credit? So they don't think long term. They think at that point that they are excited about that, what they want, and they take it. The other thing what we see is that they don't understand the different types of credit and their costs. So sometimes they would take expensive credit where they could get something more affordable. So it's also understanding the different products that are out there, their implications and their impact.
Magauta, give us an example of what is expensive credit and what is cheaper credit, for want of a better phrase.
For example, you would find that we have people that would take a payday loan, which comes at 5% per month, when they could take a credit card, and if they use that credit card responsibly for emergencies and repaid on time, they could pay lower interest. So it's making those kinds of comparisons and taking out what could be affordable. For example, somebody, taking out a personal loan for 150,000 rand to buy a car, when they could get, they could get a vehicle loan at prime plus 2%.
So people really have to do their homework. They've got to sit down and say, first of all, what is a luxury? Then what is my necessities? Then what do I need this loan for? And then what you're saying is also look at things long term. Will I be able to afford this loan? Because the problem doesn't necessarily come in when people take out a loan and become indebted for a product. The problem comes long term when there's a change in circumstance, when there's a change in working conditions, when there's a lifestyle change that you then cannot afford your debt repayments. Is that not so?
Yes, but I believe that if you had planned properly at the beginning, some of the things could be avoided. It should not become a disaster when the interest rates go up because you haven't borrowed to the maximum of your discretionary income. You have a buffer that if something happens, I would still be able to continue. And if something were to happen, do I have the right insurance to protect me against those eventualities? Do I have enough savings to be able to deal with those issues? But for most people, there is no planning whatsoever. So when something happens, it becomes a huge disaster because you haven't thought about it, you haven't planned for it. And a problem is that a lot of the time also people don't know what to do and they leave it until late, before they deal with the issue, because it's an emotional issue. It's difficult for them to face the fact that they are experiencing financial difficulty.